Hey everyone, it's Jack back again with another weirdest episodes. Thank you so much, by the way, for all of your lovely feedback on the episodes so far. I'm glad that I'm not the only person who enjoys watching weird wrestling. We've already done a SmackDown, we've done a Raw, and we've done an Impact episode, or an NWA TNA episode. So I'm gonna go now to a Raw in slightly more modern times, but not too modern. We're still keeping it in the 2000s. I'll explain. Monday Night Raw is famously 3 hours long these days, isn't it? But sometimes it feels like WWE don't really know how to fill those 3 hours. I'm not saying that every single Raw is a bad episode, but even the good ones sometimes feel like they're trying to stretch sort of 1.5 hours of content into what feels like about a 5-hour gap, although it is realistically only 3. So I thought, what better way to examine this than to go back and look at the very first time an episode of Monday Night Raw was 3 hours long. It was a one-off at the time. It wasn't the first of this run of 3-hour Raws. It was a special occasion, and thankfully for us, it was also a very, very weird episode. Luke, hit the intro, please. It's October 3rd, 2005, and we are jetting off to Dallas, Texas for the most stupendous Raw of all time. It was Raw's homecoming to the USA Network. They'd spent a little bit of time on Spike TV. These networks are meaningless to me. I don't know what it means, but they're back on their historic home, and everyone's very happy about it. So happy that they're extending Raw to 3 hours for one night only. And back in 2005, it looked as though they actually thought, hang on, we need to really think about how to fill these 3 hours, which is sometimes more than you can say about Raw these days. So that's why in the first match of this show, as we'll see, we get a 30-minute Iron Man match between two of the greatest wrestlers of all time. That's a pretty good way to start things off. And then the show ends with John Cena versus Eric Bischoff for the WWE title, mind. This is Bischoff's big shot. But none of these guys that I've already mentioned open the show. In fact, it's Mick Foley who opens the show, to a rapturous ovation, of course. But Foley isn't the only legend in this opening segment. He's actually the guest on Piper's Pit, and he brings out Rowdy Roddy Piper, and Roddy actually bigs up Mick Foley and says, you know, I thought I was crazy, but you're crazier than me. You fall off garage roofs for fun. You slam yourself into thumbtacks. And Foley gets sheepish about it. Foley's like, oh shucks, I did do those things. Yes, you're correct, Roddy. But Roddy says, Mick, the question we all want to know the answer to is when you're going to come back and compete in WWE. And Foley says, well, I competed last year, and I might need a good reason to do so again, and that is when Randy Orton's music hits. And when Orton's music hits, and it's not voices, it's Burning My Lights. Hey, nothing you can say. That was an odd noise that I just made. But as Burning My Light hits, let's move on, Piper goes, what's that? And I'm like, Rowdy Roddy, that's Burning My Light. That's Randy Orton's theme tune. I fully am aware that Roddy Piper likely didn't watch Raw week on week or SmackDown in 2005, but at least pretend that you know who it is, Roddy. Randy is here with his dad, Cowboy Bob Orton, but hold on a minute, guys. Randy's a SmackDown superstar, and this is Monday Night Raw. What's he doing here? In fact, Orton's getting ready for a big SmackDown feud and a big pay-per-view match against The Undertaker at No Mercy, which is the upcoming SmackDown exclusive pay-per-view. Mick's confused as well. Mick's like, Randy, what are you doing here? And Randy goes, shut up, Mick. I'm here for Roddy. And then we get quite a cool and unique, well thought out little angle. They don't just kind of slam Roddy and Randy together and say, oh, there's some manufactured beef between the two. It's rooted in history. Orton says, my dad was with you, traveling on all those roads, and he paved the way for your success, and you hogged all the glory. And I'm like, damn, that's legit character motivation. That's really good. It looks for a second, because Randy's younger and bigger and scarier, that Roddy's in trouble. And I'm thinking, how is he going to get out of this one? And Roddy Piper gets out of this predicament by leaning back and smacking Randy, just knocking him on his arse. And I'm like, wow. Roddy Piper can still throw hands. It turns into a brawl on the canvas, and you can tell that during this brawl, Piper is putting his full weight down. Like Orton's trying to turn him over. He's like, come on, Roddy, let me get some heat back. Come on now. And Piper's just leaning on him like, no, I'm the strong one in this contest. They get separated by Foley and by Bob Orton as well. And you know how Randy Orton, right, in a match, he'll whip someone into the ropes, and before he hits that quick power slam, he'll do just a little clap like that. He'll go whip, clap, power slam. Turns out that's a family trait, because Bob Orton does that as well, but he doesn't do it before a power slam. He does it before a sucker punch. So he stood there, and then he goes, bang! And I'm like, wow, what a novel way of distracting your opponent, I guess. RKO to Piper, RKO to Foley as well, and Randy takes his top off, and all the ladies in Dallas scream for him. And I'm thinking, oh, is that how it works? Is it you're allowed to assault two older gentlemen as long as you've got sick abs? Is that right? I wish I had sick abs. Moving on from that opening segment, it's time for a huge match to start the show. As I mentioned, a 30-minute Iron Man match between Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels.
Oh yes, indeed.
Not only that, but Angle won their match at Mania, Michaels won their rematch at Vengeance, so this is a decider as well. It's a bit of a rubber match, as if this couldn't get any more exciting. But just to hold off a little bit longer before that match can begin, we head backstage where the Raw General Manager, Eric Bischoff, and the SmackDown General Manager, Teddy Long, are having a bit of an argument. Holla holla, player player. I'm going to keep doing that for a few more seconds. Bischoff's like, Teddy Long, what the hell are the Ortons doing here? They're SmackDown superstars. This is your doing. And Teddy Long's like, holla, holla, nothing to do with me, Eric. And Eric's like, I don't believe you. Eric, by the way, is in his lovely all-black martial arts gi because, of course, he is competing in the main event against John Cena for the WWE Championship, as I've mentioned. It's a weird episode. It's the name of the game. Teddy denies everything, and finally, we head to Kurt Angle versus the Heartbreak Kid. There are loads of legends in the front row for this one as well, because it's Raw's homecoming to the USA Network. It's 3 hours long. They're all there for this big event. And we see as the camera pans across, Jim Duggan's got his 2x4. Of course he does. Just in case it's needed. It goes without saying that this match is really, really good. Angle versus Michaels in 2005? Yes. The first fall comes when Michaels knocks Angle down and heads up top for the big elbow drop, but Angle's playing possum and scoots up there and hits an avalanche Angle slam for 3. That's just the first fall. Later on, Angle goes for the ankle lock, but Michaels reverses it and rolls him up. 1, 2, 3. It's one apiece. I legitimately really enjoyed this match, of course. But a few minutes later, Angle gets the ankle lock again, and this time he grapevines it, and Michaels has no choice but to tap out. I wonder why Angle doesn't just grapevine the leg every single time he applies the ankle lock. And I know that the answer is because it's wrestling, Jack, it's not real, come on, you idiot.
It's still real, you damn it.
Shawn ties the score with under 5 minutes to go, nailing that sweet, sweet chin music. It's 2-2. And it's worth mentioning, this isn't like a fall of the match or anything, but there's an insane reversal towards the end, where Michaels gets his moonsault reversed into an ankle lock, which is the sort of move that you'd kind of sneer at if you read it on an e-fed online. You'd go, they're not writing in a realistic fashion. This is silly. There's well over a minute left. HBK is trapped in the ankle lock and he has to hold on. He manages to kick Kurt away at one point, but Angle just scoots over and reapplies it straight away, and the crowd are losing their minds. And I'm losing my mind too, because it's logical, and I like logic in my wrestling. HBK rolls through. They both rise to their feet. Sweet chin music. HBK collapses onto Kurt, and the time runs out before the referee can count 3. Perfect timing, perfect finish. What a match to start the show. Shawn is exhausted. Angle leaves the ring. Shawn gets on the mic and says, Kurt, I don't want it to end like that. I remember WrestleMania 12 in that divisive match that half the people who watched it now hate. And he doesn't say that. And I want sudden death overtime. And Angle looks at him and goes, nah, you're okay. And he walks to the back, which I thought was a little bit out of character for like wrestling machine Kurt Angle, but he's the heel, so I don't have too many complaints. Backstage, no chance, that's what you got to. It's Vince McMahon, and he's talking to Eazy-E. Bischoff wants to make his match later on with John Cena a no DQ match, which I suspect is for shenanigans-based reasons. It's not going to be a normal one-on-one match, is it, Eric? I know your games. It looks like Vince knows his games as well, because Vince says no, and Eric loses his temper and says, look, Vince, honestly, I'm starting to think you only hired me as the general manager of Raw so you could humiliate me on a weekly basis. That's probably quite true. Bischoff is so annoyed that he calls Vince sick, and Vince gets all serious and says, oh, Eric, you have no idea how sick, twisted, and perverted, interesting choice of word, and perverted I can be. I think we do know how perverted Vince can be, but let's move on. Vince is heading out for a promo segment, and in the ring, Lillian Garcia has to read his personalized ring introduction, which hypes up how strong, handsome, and well-endowed Vince is. Poor Lillian, man. What a way to make a living. Vince comes out and says, oh yes, yes, we're back on the USA Network and anything can happen. It's just like the old days. A big reference to the Attitude Era, which at this point had only ended like sort of 4 years before. They're still harking back to the Attitude Era nowadays, and it's weird to see them refer to it as the old days in 2005. Vince reminisces to get heat from the crowd about a time that he beat up Steve Austin in 1998, and he goes, roll the footage, and the Tron goes on, and it clearly says 1999 in the corner, not 98. Come on now, Vince McMahon. Obviously, while he's gloating, Austin's music hits, and here comes Stone Cold, and Vince is so shocked. Look at his shocked face. Why were you shocked, Vince? Come on now, friend. You've been doing this a long time. Now, Austin says, I've got it written down a little bit here. He says that Vince is a little nervous. What? Uptight? What? Is this impression? I can't work out how good it is, because in my own head it sounds like it's pretty good, but obviously when you hear your own voice back, it's not as deep as you think it is. I don't know how I'm doing. Uptight, what? Nervous, what? Skittery, what? Austin's also got some highlights himself. What? A few video clips. What? A few historic moments. What? The what chants were really overpowering, weren't they? And still are today, to be honest. Austin rolls the infamous bedpan clip, clang, and Vince says, well, Steve, that was terribly embarrassing. They saw me in my underpants, and they almost saw my private parts. And I'm like, Vince, you wrote this promo for yourself, didn't you? You weird man. We also see the Bang 316 clip. We see the beer bath one as well. Vince, by this point, he's just absolutely fuming. Vince wants to leave. He says, I've got stuff to do. I want to get out of this ring and away from you. And Austin goes, no. Wait there, Vince. Bang, stunner, of course. Vince takes it. He's down and out on the canvas. This could have been a little bit shorter, but I get it. It's a 3-hour Raw. And the segment's not over yet. Oh, okay. Here comes the money. It's time for Shane McMahon. He gets in the ring. Austin goes for the stunner, but Shane grabs a double leg, starts laying in some vicious ground and pound. Oh, no, wait. That's not what happens. He immediately gets stunned, because this is back when Shane was a loser and was therefore cool, not nowadays when he's cool and is therefore a loser. Stephanie's turn now. She heads down to the ring, and I'm starting to realise, oh, this is the segment where he stuns all of the McMahons, isn't it? Steph gets in there and decides to do a bit of an improv promo with Austin. So Austin's trying to do his thing, and Steph gets to say her piece, and then it's time for Austin to retaliate. But she keeps trying to grab the mic from him and take over the promo, and I'm like, yeah, that's what we want. We want Stephanie interrupting a Steve Austin promo. In fact, if you really pause the video at one point, you can see that Austin is genuinely, I think that's genuine annoyance on his face. He's like, what is she doing? This isn't in the plan. So Austin goes, what fragrance are you wearing? And Stephanie's totally stunned. He's outfoxed her. And then he says, do you want to give a little kiss to Stone Cold? Which is weird. Obviously she doesn't. Slaps him. He stuns her. I'm like, yes, the segment can move along. Oh no, it can't yet, because it's time for Linda. Yeah, it's Linda's song, everyone. Bow, 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 bow. Pokemon Johto. Oh my god. Linda, never the greatest actress really, was she? She gets in the ring and look at her reaction to all her family being laid out. She's kind of like, oh, this is annoying. Linda says, Steve, why? Why have you stunned my husband? And Stone Cold says, your husband's a piece of trash. And Linda goes, yeah. Linda says, Steve, you owe the McMahon family an apology. And Austin does apologize, and he goes to leave, and then he stops. And the crowd go wild at the thought of this small woman having her neck snapped forwards by this much larger man. And Austin wants another kiss on the cheek. He already asked Stephanie, now he's asking Linda, what is with horny Austin in this segment? It's a different version of Austin that we don't normally see, and I'm not sure that I like it.
Disgusting!
Also, Linda actually goes for it. She goes to kiss him on the cheek. This is a man who has battered and tortured her entire family. This is really actually quite a psychologically distressing segment. I feel like I'm watching like a Serbian film or something, one of those films. It's really dark. Austin goes to drink a beer with Linda. He spills a lot of it down her front deliberately, but accidentally as well. And I'm like, I hope that she's okay with that backstage. Then he stuns her. She takes it terribly. And finally, the segment is over. As a child, if I watched this, I'd probably think, brilliant, Austin stunned the entire McMahon family. But now, as an adult watching it back, I'm like, this is actually really dark, like really dark. And the worst part is, it was probably written by Vince, who is probably lying face down deliberately for a reason while he's selling to hide the big grin on his face. Or to hide his erect. Backstage, Vince is helped into a car and says somebody's gonna get fired over this, but the main point here is Vince is away now. Now Eric Bischoff is back in charge of the show, baby. The next match is Edge versus Matt Hardy one-on-one in a ladder match for Edge's Money in the Bank briefcase. But that's not all, because the loser also has to leave Raw. That's like a pay-per-view level match. Great tactics from Edge at the start here. He waits at the side of the ramp, like on the stage, and when Matt makes his entrance, he's planted Lita on the ramp as a distraction, and then blindsides Matt from the side, and then scurries straight away down to the ring and tries to get the briefcase straight away. Logic again. Yes. Logic. There's lots of twists and turns in this match, quite dangerous ladder spots as well, as we see in many ladder matches. Ladders are quite unpredictable and scary. They glitch out quite a lot and fly all over the place, as we know. At one point, Matt tries to climb for the briefcase, but Lita gets in the ring and pulls the ladder out from beneath him. And on commentary, JR says, Lita pulling the ladder out from under Matt, just like she did his life. And I'm like, wow, Jim. Edge ties Matt in the ropes, and Lita does like a bit of an AJ Lee impression and gets him in that hold and holds Matt in place while Edge climbs the ladder and pulls down the briefcase, and Matt has to leave Raw. Like immediately, Matt has to leave Raw straight away. Police come down and escort Matt away. It's all very sudden. No time to waste though, because we head straight backstage where Trish Stratus and Ashley Mazzaro are talking tactics. Good stuff. They've got a tag match coming up. Unfortunately, it's a Bra and Pandy's tag match. I'm like, come on. To make things even more tasteful, Mae Young turns up and just gets her bra out. And I'm like, it's just the most tasteful Raw in history, isn't it? But don't worry, the segment's not over yet, because Mae kind of stumbles out into the corridor and bumps into a group of assorted legends. Ted DiBiase, Jimmy Snuka, and Hacksaw Jim Duggan. DiBiase tries to bribe her with cash to put her shirt back on, and she wanders off, and then Snuka takes the cash and runs after her, and Fabulous Moolah's there, and it's a very problematic segment with, in hindsight, a lot of very problematic people, and I don't know what to make of it. And unfortunately, this is what Ashley Mazzaro was saddled with on this show, which is very sad to see. Hopefully the match itself makes up for it later on. Spoilers, the match doesn't make up for it, but instead we've got another backstage segment first with Maria Kanellis. This isn't modern day heel pseudo Stephanie McMahon Maria Kanellis. This is when her gimmick was like being stupid, and they try and convey her being stupid by having her talk like a child, which makes it even more disturbing when Ric Flair wanders up and starts flirting with her. And I'm like, no, man, this Raw's taken a really downward turn. He hypes the next match, which we get right now. It's Triple H and Ric Flair taking on the Masters of Cool, Carlito and Chris Masters. This is Triple H's return match. He'd taken a bit of time off for injury, so this is also another big match on this show. The story of this match is all about Rick playing face in peril until finally, he gets that hot tag to the Game, who runs wild and then goes for the sledgehammer. This isn't no DQ, Paul. What are you doing? Masters gets control of the sledgehammer and goes to cause like serious damage to Triple H, but Ric Flair stops him. Triple H hits the pedigree, 1, 2, 3, and the good guys win. Yay! They celebrate after the match, and Triple H immediately turns heel, nailing Ric Flair, who obviously bleeds a lot. He beats up Flair a lot more, and Jim Ross on commentary is really shocked. Like, come on, JR, it's Triple H. The beatdown carries on and goes on for so long that we then throw to a web exclusive segment of the beatdown where he drags him into the parking lot, throws Flair into a car, and then smashes the car window with a sledgehammer, and then finally it comes to an end. Next up, it's a Legends segment. Dusty Rhodes leads all of the Legends in the ring with a big babyface promo until he is interrupted by the Randy Newman-esque music of Rob Conway. Conway cuts a heel promo, and it's eerie just how quiet the crowd are. It's a shame, but they just don't give a damn. The Legends predictably beat up Rob Conway. We get an elbow from Dusty. We get the claw from Von Erich. It's Tex. Oh wait, which Von Erich is it? Kevin?
I don't know my fruits.
We get the claw from Kevin Von Erich in Texas. Nice touch. And then we get a splash from Jimmy Snuka to end things off. Great segment. Just wonderful stuff. Now it's time for the Bra and Panties match. We've got Tori Wilson, Candice Michelle, and Victoria. I think they were Vince's Devils, weren't they? Were they Vince's Devils? Against the team, as we've seen, of Trish Stratus and Ashley Mazzaro. Obviously, it's not very good. I don't know how to really recap this match other than it's a shame, because some of the women in there are way too talented for this sort of thing. At one point, there's a bit of a hard strike that's thrown in the ring, and JR goes, whoa, hard strike there. And Lawler goes, you think that's hard? Jerry, man. Jerry. Trish and Ashley get the win, big babyface win. Trish doesn't even lose any part of her attire, which I like to think, at least, is because she was like, I'm way above this, but I don't actually know why the reason is, but I'd like to think it was that. Backstage again we go to Eric Bischoff, who's warming up for his match with some fast hands. Faster than I can do. Eric Bischoff, remember, he is legit like a martial arts man. Kurt Angle comes in and interrupts and says, whoa, Eric, I saw what the bloody Ortons did earlier. Aren't you a little bit worried about the blue brand? And now we get Eric revealing his master plan. He says, Angle, you might have noticed that Vince is no longer here. I'm in charge once again. I'm going to implement that no DQ stipulation for my title match against John Cena. And when I win, with your help, because you're going to accompany me to the ring, then I'll be WWE champion. A belt that I only need to hold one time. I only want it for one night, and then I'll pass it off to you. And they both laugh deviously. Ooh, evil laughing is hard. Back we go to ringside. It's the SmackDown announce team. It's Michael Cole and Taz. They are here to introduce a special SmackDown match on this episode of Raw. We are, of course, a little while away from Survivor Series, but we're building towards it with this inter-brand tension. It's a stacked match as well. The competitors are Batista, Rey Mysterio and Benoit against Eddie Guerrero, Christian and JBL. That's a big match. Again, loads of big matches on this show, except this one doesn't happen. That's because Bischoff interrupts before the bell and says, whoa, we're not having this dirty SmackDown match on my show, Monday Night Raw. Turn the lights off. And the crew turn the lights off and the wrestlers are just left in a dark ring. And Bischoff laughs loads and we go to commercial. Whatever makes you happy, Eric. The worst part for me is as well, the wrestlers in the ring don't even look annoyed. They're just sort of mildly confused. Once we're back from break, mercifully, the lights are back on again. And who's in the ring? It's Mean Gene Okerlund. Lovely to see him. And who's he with? Hulk Hogan. Lovely to... Hogan gets on the mic and puts over Shawn Michaels for their hellacious match, which Hogan won at SummerSlam. And he says, Michaels, you were a tough opponent, brother, dude. And correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't that the match when Michaels hilariously oversold everything that Hogan did to him? So the cheek of Hogan for what he says next. Because the Hulkster says, Michaels, this was such a good match that anytime you want to lock horns again in a rematch, bro, I'll be there, I'll do it, we can have another rematch. And I'm thinking, wasn't the reason that Michaels refused to take that first match at SummerSlam seriously because Hogan refused to have a rematch? He refused to put Michaels over further on down the line. I think that's true. So why is Hogan now saying, oh, if you want a rematch, Michaels? I think it's because Hogan knows that a rematch isn't going to happen because he's refused to put Michaels over, and therefore by saying it in character on camera, it makes Michaels look like a coward when the match doesn't happen. Hogan's still politicking, brother, and it's sad to see. But I guess if anyone deserves it, sort of in terms of karma, maybe it's Shawn. Hogan talks about his list of big victories at WrestleMania. Andre the Giant, Vince McMahon, The Rock. The Rock won that match, Hulk. The Rock won that one. What are you playing at, you sad old man? But Hogan says there's one more big opponent he wants at Mania. He ran into someone in the back and he's decided that Steve Austin, I'm calling you out, brother, which is obviously a match that never took place. So in hindsight, this is quite an awkward and pointless segment. And finally, we get to the big main event. It's John Cena versus Eric Bischoff with Kurt Angle for the WWE title. Cena makes his entrance wearing a baseball shirt over a hoodie, which is unusual. I think that's a bit of an unusual look for Cena. It's almost like he's wearing kind of the unlocked bonus attire of himself. So I just thought it was, there's no joke, I just thought it was quite interesting, they don't have to be bangers, guys. Cena is immediately distracted by the presence of Angle at ringside, so Bischoff throws a kick and Cena catches it, lays him out, shoulder block. Cena's laying these strikes in. Angle tries to get involved, but Cena deals with him for two reasons. One, Angle's still tired because he wrestled Shawn Michaels for half an hour at the start of the show. But two, because this is 2005. And in 2005, the Rocket was up John Cena's ass. But he's not fully Super Cena yet because Bischoff jumps him from behind and starts like dominating him. I mean, he's dominating him with those kicks that he does, those technically correct in karate but rubbish in professional wrestling kicks, which is fine. It's just really odd to see. Cena regains control, but Bischoff gets a low blow. Angle grabs a steel chair, charges at Cena. Cena gets out the way, and Angle does that spot that he's done a few times in his career. It's always really good, really gifable as well. He like hits the top rope, and the chair rebounds into his own head. Has anyone in the history of wrestling done that spot better than Kurt Angle? Cena gets Bischoff up, can't see him, F you, 1, 2, 3, John Cena wins the match and retains the title, and there's a sign in the background that says Cena, kill him, for Nitro fans. I'm surprised a WCW fan was let in the building, because this was only 4 years after the end of the war, damn it. Cena and Angle after the bell, keep brawling until, holla player, it's Teddy Longtime. It's Teddy Longtime. He comes out on stage and they actually stop fighting and listen to him as if he's like the teacher. Remember earlier when Bischoff asked Teddy if he had anything to do with the Ortons showing up on his show and Teddy said no he didn't? Teddy lied, and he says now that he wants to do things, this is a direct quote, gangster style. Yes, Teddy. The SmackDown roster charge the ring and start taking it to Cena, Angle, and Bischoff. Batista gets Bischoff up for the Batista bomb, but here comes the Raw locker room, and it's on. It's a big brawl. And that's how the show ends, with a big brawl, and with Jim Ross on commentary going, let them fight, let them fight. They are literally fighting, Jim. There's no security holding them back. What are you talking about? And sadly for me as well, the show goes off the air just as Viscera makes it to the ring. I really wanted to see what Viscera was going to do. I thought he was going to lay down some absolute justice, corporate ministry style, but we'll never know. So that is how Raw managed to fill 3 hours for the first time. And you know what? There were some definite lows on this show, but for the most part, I thought it was good. I really enjoyed it. It wasn't perfect, but it still felt like there was a lot more energy and realism than we tend to see and feel these days, which is strange because when you look back at 2005, it's an era that's kind of remembered unfavorably sometimes compared to the Attitude Era that immediately preceded it. So we'll end this video by taking a look at where this all led. Then it's a weird one because the next pay-per-view was No Mercy, which was a SmackDown exclusive pay-per-view. So the only person that we've really talked about in this video that features is Randy Orton and Cowboy Bob Orton as well. They beat The Undertaker in a handicap casket match, which would then lead to Survivor Series, where Orton would win the Survivor Series match for Team SmackDown, and then The Undertaker would return and scare Orton. Look at it. Look at his little scared face. Also at Survivor Series, Teddy Long would beat Eric Bischoff with help from the Boogeyman. Yes, love the Boogeyman. I'm sad he wasn't on this show. The next Raw pay-per-view after this show was Taboo Tuesday, a concept that I still can't believe that they've never tried to bring back in the age of social media, but possibly it's because it requires at least some degree of listening to what the fans want. Taboo Tuesday, at the top of the card, John Cena would retain the WWE title in a triple threat against Angle and Michaels, and Trish Stratus would retain her Women's Championship in a Fulfill Your Fantasy Battle Royal. Good to see the two top champions of each division equally respected and represented here. Foley did indeed return to action as well at Taboo Tuesday, stepping back into his old Mankind gimmick to defeat Carlito, and then would eventually go on to face Edge in that amazing match at the next WrestleMania. Flair would get his chance at revenge against Triple H in a steel cage match, and would actually win by escaping the cage, but still, that's pretty good going for Ric Flair against Triple H in 2005. Triple H would win the rematch, of course, but hey, I wasn't expecting that. And on that bombshell, that is how we'll end this video. Thank you once again so much for watching. Thanks to Luke for editing this video as well. And leave your thoughts and opinions in that comment section down below. And leave other suggestions for weird episodes of wrestling shows that I can react to and break down for your amusement on this very channel. Maybe the one with the most upvotes will get... we might do that, we might not, I don't know. Have a good day.